Did you know that boluses now work differently in Elden Ring Nightreign? Well, maybe you did if you have been watching my live streams, but if not, did you know that they can now be used preemptively? What about the rare Township location? Did you know what's special about the merchant here? Well, let's elaborate on both of these points, along with a bunch of other things that you may not be doing that are making Nightreign significantly harder than it needs to be. Let's start by talking about bosses with red eyes, not to be confused with enemies with red eyes. This Crucible Knight here, great example. Yes, he will drop a loot orb, but he doesn't have his health bar filling up the screen. He's not technically a boss. He's what's known as a formidable enemy, and you know this because the loot orb that he drops is blue, so he only drops rarity loot. I'm talking about formidable bosses. A very common spawn location for a formidable boss is the basement of the castle right in the middle of the map, and as I say, you can tell these enemies because they will have their health bar on screen and they will have red eyes. Now, you're not always going to be able to see the red eyes, such as the Erdtree avatar here, so there is another way to find out if you are fighting a formidable boss. All you need to do is quickly open up your minimap, zoom in, and you'll see a big red aura around the boss's symbol. This means you are fighting a formidable boss. Now, why is any of this relevant? Why am I telling you this? Effectively, you don't really want to be fighting formidable bosses until day 2. And you may want to say to me, Dom, I'm an expert at Elden Ring by now, I can easily kill them. I'm not saying you can't. What I'm saying is it's inefficient. At low levels, you are going to be killing these bosses very slowly, and it's much better to do other things on day 1 until your character's more powerful and you have better weapons. So if you do come up against a boss and you're beating on it and you're thinking, this thing has got way more health than I thought, try and check out its eyes. If not, quickly check your minimap, and if you see that it's a formidable boss, leave it and come back later when you are more powerful. It's just more efficient this way. You are more likely to hit max level and you're more likely to be able to beat the Night Lord. That's everything you need to know about red-eyed enemies and formidable bosses specifically, so let's move on to the next tip. This next tip is all about red hand items. If you look at your inventory, sometimes you will see items with a white or a red hand on them. Now, what this means is pretty obvious. It literally just means for this effect to apply, you need to be wielding the weapon. But what that means is a little bit ambiguous, so I did some testing on stream and I have discovered this for you. This is exactly how these items work. Firstly, yes, it will only apply if this is in your main hand or your offhand. However, another great thing to note is you don't need to be physically wielding it. If you two-hand your right-hand weapon and your left-hand weapon is the one that has this effect on it, it will still apply. As long as it's still in your active weapons slot, you don't physically need it in your hand. It can be on your waist and you can be two-handing your other weapon. Just so you know exactly how these white hand, red hand items work. Next up, let's talk about the rewards that you can acquire that are triggered by walking, because initially this sounds horrendous. Why are you ever going to want to force yourself to walk in a game like Nightreign? Most Night Lords are far too erratic for you to be walking around their feet. You are just asking for death. However, the more you look into this, the more you realize that sometimes they are very, very good. Certain characters have a stance that they are in pretty frequently that will allow you to trigger these walking effects. So, for instance, the Wilder, I would say, never take a walking effect. He wants to be far too mobile. The Guardian, however, if you're walking around in guard stance, or the Executor walking around in Cursed Blade stance, both of these will trigger walking effects. So depending on the character, if you do have someone who has a dedicated walking stance, such as Guard or Cursed Blade, or even aiming in with the Iron Eye, then suddenly the walking effect rewards become far more valuable. So don't completely discount them, keep them in mind in case you are playing one of these characters. This next tip is all about the Township key location and the incredibly powerful merchant that spawns there. He has a greatly expanded inventory, including 3 talismans, loads of items, loads of weapons, and an additional Wending Grace. This Wending Grace is 100% guaranteed to be there in solo. I'm not sure about multiplayer, but I would bet money on it that it is a guaranteed item, regardless of how many people you're playing with, because of how powerful and important this merchant is. But even with the Wending Grace aside, the rest of his inventory still makes him very powerful and extremely useful if you swing by the Township when you have a decent amount of runes. Now, please do note that the Township location itself won't always spawn, however the merchant should. So if the Township isn't there, the merchant will be somewhere else. And obviously now this is far less reliable where he will be, but if you want to go looking for him, just switch to the detailed look on your minimap and incorporate as many camps with merchants as you can on your route, and you're almost guaranteed to bump into him eventually. And especially if you can find this merchant when playing solo, this means you can have up to 4 extra lives when fighting the final boss. The Wending Grace from this merchant, the one from the regular merchant, the Wending Grace from the final merchant once you enter day 3, and then your free extra automatic life just for playing solo. This next tip absolutely blew my mind. If you consume a bolus, it will not only obviously strip away any build-up of that particular status effect that you had, so for instance, if you're poisoned or nearly poisoned, it will remove the poison, but also it will increase your resistance to that status effect for the rest of your run. And I actually tested this on stream the other day during my challenge run attempts. So as you can see here, I consume a couple of boluses, and sure enough, when I go and check in the status screen, you can see that I now have increased resistances to them status effects. And I'm going to check in on this later in the run, even after I've died, and a good 15 minutes and 1 death later, them effects have still persisted. So whenever you first see a bolus of each type at the start of your run, consume them, because then for the rest of the run, through days, through deaths, that resistance will stay for the entirety of your run. It is so incredibly powerful. This next tip seems very simple, but it needs to be said because a lot of people are still doing this wrong. When flying on one of these spectral hawk trees, do not touch your analog stick, or keyboard and mouse. Don't touch WASD, whatever it may be. Don't try and guide your bird in a particular direction. It will make you fall out of the sky and dismount. Interact with the tree, leave your controller alone until you get to the point in your journey where you are ready to land. About all I would advise you do is open the map just to track where you are so you don't lose track of your destination. That is it, okay? For this next tip, it's very important to remember that enemies don't regenerate health in Nightreign, and you can really use this fact to your advantage. Let me give you just one great example, and as you become more familiar with the mechanics of Nightreign, you can expand on this and really make the most out of this tip. So if your ultimate art is nearly charged, for example, and you are running past a boss that you don't necessarily want to kill yet, but you will be coming back this way and wanting to kill it on day 2, farm a few enemies on your way to charge your ult, smash the boss a few times as you're running past, and then you can come back tomorrow and instantly finish it off for a super quick and efficient rune boost, as I've just done with this lion. Next up, my friends, sometimes you will notice you just randomly receive a healing flask charge, and obviously in Elden Ring, things like this happened if people approved your messages, appraised your messages. There isn't anything like that in this game, so for the longest time, I thought it was when someone interacted with your successful runs back in Roundtable Hold. However, we now have confirmation as to why this happens. Passively, automatically, once per minute, you will just be rewarded with a healing flask charge. The game just says, oh, you've been walking around for a bit, here, have a heal. I know, this is FromSoftware, it's absolutely bonkers that they're doing nice things for us like this. But it's a thing, that's how it works. Obviously, this is stopped if you are fighting a night boss or a night lord, because otherwise you could just run around forever gaining free healing flasks. This only applies while you're exploring. Another quick fun tip for you here actually before we move on to the next one. Bonus tip alert. God, that was cringe. Even though we don't take fall damage anymore, enemies do. So that's another thing FromSoftware have done for us, which is just bizarre. Like, why are they being nice to their players? So if you have any attacks that will knock enemies back, feel free to knock them off cliffs and ledges and stuff. They will take fall damage, you won't, and now your fight has been made significantly easier. Next up, as I just gave you a bonus tip, tip number 9, join my Discord server and subscribe to the channel. I do my best to make high quality content as frequently as possible, and if you could please thank me by subscribing to the channel, liking the video, leaving a comment and joining Discord, that would be absolutely wonderful of you. It's much appreciated. It's completely free and it really helps the channel grow and get my name out there. And for anyone who already has done these things, thank you so very much. Next up, let's talk about character remembrances and how you know if you have completed a character's questline. At first, it was believed that it was when you unlock the character's remembrance skin. This isn't necessarily the case. Check your journal and you will see a sketch at the bottom right of every character questline that you have finished. That symbolizes you have 100%ed that questline. There are no more steps. However, with characters where you have the remembrance skin, but you still don't have the sketch in that journal yet, that means there is at least one step remaining. And I am pretty confident that the final step remaining for all of these characters where you have their remembrance skin but you still don't have the sketch yet is because they have a hidden ending tied to beating the final Night Lord. So for instance, taking the Wilder as an example, obviously he plays a huge role in the story. I won't go into it, no spoilers, but once you have his remembrance skin, you'll find there is one step remaining. Go and beat the final Night Lord with him, you will experience a secret ending, and you will complete his questline. And as far as I'm aware, that applies for the other characters as well. Next up, FromSoftware recently released an update to solos to make them a bit easier. You get more runes, and you also get one free revive each day. Just wanted to clarify for you, in case you missed my patch notes video, exactly how this revive works. So it doesn't apply during the day, it will only take effect during the night boss, and it literally just acts as a free Wending Grace. And if you didn't know, you get a free Wending Grace on night 1, then that replenishes at the start of day 2, so you can use it on night 2, and it replenishes one final time when you get to the Spirit Shelter, and you even get a third free revive on the Night Lord as well. So that's 3 free Wending Graces potentially when playing solo, making this game much more viable to solo now than it was previously. And finally, this tip is twofold. I'm going to tell you something that you can do, but then I'm also going to give you a reason why it's maybe not the best thing to do. So recently I have completed a challenge where I had to beat every single Night Lord in solo permadeath. That means if a character died to a Night Lord, that character was considered dead. I could not use them again. And this run really forced me to learn all of the different mechanics in the game, and it led me to a revelation that you can, in fact, use any weapon you want on any character you want. And in fact, I had some really good victories using a melee-focused Revenant, using scythes and katanas and stuff like that. And so many people in the chat were like, I always forget that any character can equip any weapon. So do that. It's so good to fill in blind spots that your character might have. Now for the reason you maybe shouldn't do it. Don't forget, each character has a unique moveset for the weapon that they are proficient in. So the Iron Eye, for instance, shoots bows way quicker than anyone else could ever dream of. So though you can use every weapon, be situational about it. Don't try and force a build that isn't there. Just have that in the back of your mind. If you find an incredibly good legendary weapon and you are still using your starter weapon, maybe switch to it, even if it's not the best weapon type for you. It is viable in certain situations. That's it for the top 12 mistakes you might still be making in Nightreign. Hopefully something here has helped. If it has, drop a sub, drop a follow, join the Discord and we'll play together sometime. And with that, my friends, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.